Yes, folks, it is the Tiger-Cats Pregame as presented by Journey Words. Let's welcome back to the broadcast John Salavanis, who has his pregame salutations. Coach Sal, always great to have you on board.
Well, thank you, Bubba, and good to have Andy back on board.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, before we look forward, let's look back, Coach. And I got to ask you this question. How do the Ticats move on from last week's crushing defeat?
Well, I think they move on with this game. They must play all 60 minutes, Bubba. And the fourth quarter is going to be real key. When you look back at it, in the 3 wins that Hamilton had, in the fourth quarter, they were plus 4 points. In the 7 losses they had, they were minus 64 in the fourth quarter. So it really comes down to this, you flush away what happened in Montreal, and you go into this game with the idea that we will win the fourth quarter and win this football game.
Coach, I also think the going into the half, the 3 minutes going into the half, and the 3 minutes coming out of half could be vital this game. Are you as a coach, are you a believer in the in and out of halftime performance and how the game outcome is a result of that?
Yes, absolutely, Andy. You're right on. The fact that you can score some points going into the halftime and then come out at the half with a flourish and really put some points on the board right away. And that goes back to the idea that at halftime, you have to utilize that time to make the adjustments necessary to come out and play the third and fourth quarter. In the past, the Cats have done mediocre in the third quarter and have done poorly in the fourth, but so has Toronto. So it really comes down to a draw as to who's going to run the rest of the way after halftime.
Coach, if we go back to the fourth quarter, you look at this. You look at the season series, and right now it's 1-1 for each team, with Toronto being up by 7 points in the aggregate, which would be the tiebreaker if it finished 2-2 over the season. If you're in the fourth quarter tonight as a coach, and say you're up by 6 points with the ball, are you trying to drive and get an extra field goal to make that a 9-point win or more, or maybe a 13-point win, so that if you do happen to lose the Labor Day game, you could still win the season series, or are you just trying to play for the win?
Well, you're playing for the win, but at the same time, your offense, as you well know, is on the field to score points. So you never want to give away the opportunity to get points. But at the same time, if you've got the game locked up and there's some question mark as to where you are on the field, then you might go a little bit more conservative. But I would always play to get the extra points.
Penalties, a serious issue against the Alouettes last week. Now, considering tonight's opponent, and I know discipline is always an issue when the Tiger-Cats and Argonauts get together, do you think the coaching staff sort of had to remind the players to keep their cool there, Coach?
I would hope that the senior players on the team would have reminded each other and the rookies on the team as to the way you've got to conduct yourself. You cannot give away a ball game simply because you're undisciplined. So, yes, but I think everybody has to remind everybody. We're playing the game within the white lines and within the rules.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially with a home and home after a home and home, 2 weeks ago. 2 most important games of the season here. Let's go to the line of scrimmage. So we have a couple questions on both sides of the line. Let's start on the offensive side. You got Kyle Saxelid coming in at guard, a 6'8" figure. Is there anything, any changes you'd make as a coach with, as far as play calling, when you have somebody that big with a quarterback who with Dane Evans, who isn't quite that tall?
Well, you might make an adjustment in the line of scrimmage with your screen plays where you normally would take your guards out in front. And what you might do is change your blocking scheme a little bit, leave Saxelid in, and move the center with Manzi to the outside on the screen, because he can pull, and he is much quicker probably than Saxelid. But, I'd rather have that big guy in there at the guard spot rather than a small one in this particular ballgame.
Yeah, you have Oakman across from him, who is one of the biggest and scariest figures I think I've ever saw in real life.
Well, those two guys can look eye to eye.
On the other side of the ball, Teddy Laurent is out, and Dylan Wynn was a game-time decision. And so with Dylan Wynn perhaps a little banged up, and of course you have Micah Johnson and Mo Dalio being the only other defensive tackle in the lineup. Would you make any changes as far as personnel groupings throughout the game and the frequency you use two defensive tackles at once?
Well, I think I would use my number one guys as far as I could, as long as I could. You know, at this time of the year, as you well know, Andy, every team's got injuries. And if the teams have done a good job in evaluating their players, there shouldn't be any big drop-off. But I would still consider Wynn and Hauser, who's also a little banged up in there. I would consider playing them as much as I could in the ball game, and if they need a break, then I would find a way to roll somebody else in.
Coach, in the secondary, you got cornerback Deontay Evans still unable to play due to injury. Rodney Randall gets a start at corner. Do you get a read on this newcomer? And is this a tough situation for the Tiger-Cats, or are the Argonauts not going to really know how to defend, how to work on this guy?
Well, Randall's been in the league before. He was a couple of years in Montreal, and he played in the XFL, and he was with San Diego for a short time. To me, he can turn things on that corner pretty good. So, and the other thing to look at is I looked him up when he was in Montreal. He had 11 special teams tackles in the time he played there. So he can play on the specials, and expect that Thompson will try to go after him perhaps early and see what he can do. But I think he'll hold up all right.
Do you think this move was perhaps because you have Brandon Banks, a speedy receiver, and Curly Gittens Jr., one of the most targeted? Well, he was the outside receiver. Tonight he's listed inside. But basically what I'm asking is, having that speed on the outside for Toronto in the receiving core. Last week you have Alden Darby Jr., who kind of is that linebacker DB hybrid, maybe not quite as fast as these receivers. Do you think that was a move because of that, or was it simply maybe Alden was hurt a bit, or for other reasons?
I really don't know, because I was not on the inside to know what the coaches were thinking. I like Randall. I think you bring a guy in like that to play him. So, and while you're at it, what Hamilton D needs to do is turn some of those 39 knockdowns that they've had into interceptions. And if Randall can come up with one of those, or Leonard can come up with one of those, I really like Roll being back on the weak side of the field. So I think the secondary is in pretty good shape.
Coach, we're going to finish at the quarterback position here. Dane Evans back in. Matthew Schultz on the lineup. Do you agree with me? You expect to see both quarterbacks get some action tonight?
I would think so. It'd be interesting to see when and why they make the change. Obviously, if Dane Evans is going well, do you really want to take him out just for a change? But if Dane is sagging a little bit, then the change would be good. Schultz will come in, I'm sure, in some of the short yardage situations. If he does, maybe keep him in for a couple of series after that and try to change up that way.
Well, one more, but with Matthew Schultz as a starter, you're really giving him the Dane Evans offense. With Matthew Schultz as the backup, couldn't you bring him in as that running threat that we saw, 3 weeks ago and 2 weeks ago, as a backup, and kind of get that other element of an offense going? Absolutely, you could, Andy. And, of course, that goes back to the idea in the philosophy of the coaching staff. Do you want two quarterbacks on the field in terms of, who's number one and who's number two? I think giving a package to someone and putting them in the ball game at a particular time is good. But at the same time, maybe if Dane is going very well, do you really want to take a chance on taking him out? Very true.
Coach Sal, we at Ticats Audio Network and Ticats Nation all across certainly love having you on the broadcast. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the game.
I will, and tell Hogan to get away from that deep-fried Snickers over there.